Hi guys, welcome to another episode of JDM Masters, and today on car reviews we have a 2005 Subaru Forester STI version. It's all codenamed the SG9. This belongs to a good friend of ours called Albo. He's graciously lent us his car to come to the STI gallery, which you can watch that video over here. So now, the Forester STI is really special in the whole line of the Subaru Forester range. So this is the second generation Forester. The first is called the SF series, and there wasn't a full STI version. They had something called the TB Turbo and an STI version, but the SG9 is a little bit more unique because it was a full STI car, just very much like its cousin, the Impreza GDB STI version. So what is so special about this car? So the STI badge applies to the Forester because it's really a full version of the normal Forester. Now, the STI badge cars usually have a lot of different parts, mainly in the engine and also the drivetrain. So the SG9 Forester has a 2.5 litre EJ25 turbocharged instead of the EJ20. Now this engine traditionally is usually found in the export spec GDB from the Blob Eye 2003 version instead of the 2 litre. Now in Japan, most of the Impreza STIs until the very final VAB were all using the same EJ20 version. The EJ25 for the Japanese market was only used really in two cars. One in this Forester STI and also the S402 Legacy. So that makes this engine really, really rare. But of course, there are certain advantages of this. So let's have a look. So a little talk about the chassis. The wheelbase, the track is very similar to the GDB sedan because it's basically the same floor pan. In fact, a lot of things are carried over from the GDB Impreza. Now, this being the same generation as the Hawkeye, as they call it, the last version GDB, but also because it isn't a RA, it uses the same gearbox and differentials from the GDB Bug-Eye A and B. So the drivetrain is using a 6-speed with a center differential 50-50, torque split, sure track differentials, and the front and the rear, no DCCD. It's very, very simple because the design concept of this car was not meant for sports driving. So what's the point of this? So the Forester is categorized as an SUV, but not really. It's something what they call a crossover. Now, crossover cars were basically combining the underfloor chassis of a sedan with a SUV type body on top. So it's not really a real SUV as, say, the later generation Foresters, which over here, as you can see, the shape, it's got much more ground clearance. But even this car, which, by the way, has a lot of nice new tuning parts. It's got a Cusco coilover suspension, Street 0A, and the car is lowered by 25 to 30 millimeters, which really makes it like more a road car. So I would kind of classify this as a station wagon. Now, a little bit about that. So the GDB STI had a wagon version called the GGB, but this was a little bit different. It wasn't really a full wagon. It's kind of like a sports hatchback. So that's where the Forester SG9 and SG5 series kind of filled that in. But because it's classified as an SUV, it wasn't really more of a wagon. So it was kind of like in a gray area. But nevertheless, this actually makes this car very, very special. The closest analogy for this car would be like something like a Porsche Cayenne or a Porsche Macan. But back then, it was only the Porsche Cayenne, which was an SUV with high power, four-wheel drive sporting credentials. This is Subaru's version of it. But what it does have similar to the sedan is the aluminum bonnet here. The fenders are made of steel, but the width is a little bit wider than the GDB sedan, which gives it better track and maybe better control because it's a higher center of gravity. Now, Albo's car has a GDB style Blob Eye generation bonnet scoop that goes into the intercooler. In fact, this is so huge that it kind of blocks the driver view a bit. It's like a Death Star scoop, as I call it. Now, this is really interesting. It's actually made of carbon fiber, aftermarket part, painted blue to match the rest of the Sonic Mica blue color. Very, very nice. It also has the optional lower lip spoiler, original STI item. But What's interesting is you have the STI logo here, but there are no cutouts for the fog lights. The fog lights was never an option on this. Maybe this one works, perhaps placed over here. The lowered suspension a little bit, giving it a very aggressive road stance. Other equipment that are same from the road car are the 4-pot Brembo calipers, the same size as the GDB A and B. Since this car's generation is the same as the Hawkeye, but a lot of the running gear was actually carried over from the Bug-Eye, the PCD is actually 5-hole 100, not 114.3. So that's something interesting. Strut dampers are the same. The original road car had more or less the same height. So it really makes it feel like it's kind of like a station wagon version. So this is where it's very, very different. Okay, so this is not standard. This is a aftermarket rear wing replicated after Zero Sports, but he's put this on. It just gives this really aggressive kind of feel, and it's complemented by the optional side skirts and the rear bumper flaps here, and just makes it, I think this is how it should have come out from the factory, you know, kind of like a really sporty and high performance station wagon. So Albo, thanks for kindly lending us your car to test drive on Hakone.
Of course, I gotta lend you guys the best car in the world.
So, you know, it's always raining when we're testing these rally four-wheel drive cars.
I don't know why. Like, it happened with the Evo, it happened with the GCA.
Yeah,
it must be the curse of the four-wheel drive cars.
Maybe.
Or maybe God just wants to set the correct
the correct testing ground.
Exactly.
Right.
To actually, you know, really be able to test in the environments where they have the most advantage.
It is. So you just got new tires. It's a Bridgestone S001, right, today?
Right. We literally just installed them.
Nice.
About 2 hours ago.
Just look at that in this video of the side view. It really fills up that wheel well. You've got the Cusco suspension, the Zero Street A.
Yeah, the Street Zero A suspension.
Yeah, really makes it just a lot more responsive. Just driving it now through these curves, even in the wet. Now these tires are spec'd to be high-grade sports premium tires, which means they're a little bit different from the AB08Rs, which are the almost highest spec circuits one. These actually have a touring aspect in it. They last longer, they're quieter, but they're also really, really good and confident in the wet. As we're just going through right now, there's no sign of any like hydroplaning, even going at a bit of average speeds. And I really love how the balance of this Forester, of course, being a more station wagon, in weight is a little bit biased to the back, and so it gives that really nice, crisp, like rotating around on the chassis, a bit better than the Impreza in my opinion. This is exactly how the Lancer Evo wagon is a bit like. Now, you had a GDB Bug-Eye before this. How do you compare these two cars? How would you compare the drive?
So what's really interesting is once you tighten the suspensions a little bit, once you have nice sticky tires on it, it feels almost exactly the same as the Bug-Eye.
That's interesting.
It's astounding because it looks like from outside, because I think because of the proportions, it looks like a much bigger car.
Right.
In terms of the actual dimensions, it's almost exactly the same.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
The only big difference, I think, is the height. Like the
there's a lot more headroom.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that, but really, you know, I just feel like, you're in a bigger room, but in the same width, the high ceiling. So let's have a look at the EJ25 engine. As you can see here, the intake manifolds are finished in red, just like the EJ20 normal sedan STI, but the intercooler is much smaller than the sedan versions. In fact, I think it's about here. You can see the turbocharger very clearly at the back. EJ25 engine is only spec'd for 265 horsepower, but because it has an advantage of extra 500cc due to its larger bore, it has a lot more mid-range torque. Torque comes in at 1,000 RPM earlier at about 3,200 according to catalog spec, but driving it on the road, really, it makes it feel much more torquey. It feels a bit like a Lancer Evolution with its low range torque. It's very, very drivable and very nicely matched with the 6-speed gearbox. Otherwise, the engine layout, most of it is the same as the EJ20 version. So the SG9 didn't come with a lot of options like the sedan version. For example, the original car didn't come with a strut bar like the GDB version. So the now this version is equipped with a Cusco strut bar, and also you can see from the coilovers, he has the Econ motorized remote control for the dampers. Really nice additions. You can see here from the ugh, I want to clean this. STI water for more horsepower. Now, other things that are missing are intercooler water spray. On the sedan versions, you will have the intercooler water spray on top here, but this doesn't have it. Probably not necessary because it was not designed to be driven very hard on a circuit or it was more like a high-powered, high-spec car for the road, which, you know, it really, really makes sense. So let's see how useful the rear space of this wagon SUV is. And as you can see here, a lot of space as typical of a station wagon and a small SUV. Now, something to note is that the overall length dimensions is really not too different from the GTB sedan. So as a station wagon, it's not really that much, but being in the D segment car, it's more than enough. You have the high height here, and so I can sit down. Now, this is a rear strut bar that was installed. It's a Cusco rear strut bar. It's not original, of course, but after and before installation, the character of the car was very, very different. Before installation, the car felt kind of like understeery and a little bit, you know, like the front and the rear really didn't follow each other. After installation, really changed the character of the car a lot. High speed, lane changes were much more stable, and the car just felt a lot more tighter. Now, admittedly, of course, it reduces on the interior space, but that's more than enough for it. So if you put the seats down like this, which is the best point about having a station wagon. This is an optional original OEM plastic rubber tray, which when you remove this, you have even more space under here. Look at that, all this utility. You can put umbrellas. He even has his snow shovel and what's this? A lot of other gear, rear view camera, GoPro, scissors. You can put basically anything you want here. I think there's more space here as well. This here is for the jack on this side here, and over here there's a pocket, even more space down here for little things. There's a little door pocket, and most importantly, a power socket at the back if you want to power anything from like lights when you go camping and stuff. And over here is a little kind of like a coat hanger thing for you to put some stuff. There are additional hooks here and here for tonneau cover, tray, or whatever. So utility, perfect. Being based on an SUV, it has these rails for attachment of roof racks. As you can see here, this is an aftermarket Eno roof rack that's meant for skis or snowboards. So utility is very, very high on a model like this. The wagon version of the Impreza doesn't have this function. So especially in Japan, when people are really active in the outdoors and you see a lot of them go skiing. So it's a small combination of all these parts that makes this car really a utilitarian and also a very sporty drive. If you're in Japan and you want these roof racks for skiing, you can get these at Up Garage, very, very cheap, as you can see in our video up here. This is also a small point. This, like I mentioned earlier, despite the Forester STI being of the same generation as the Hawkeye GDB Impreza STI, the drivetrain is actually very similar, if not probably the same as the Bug-Eye. So it doesn't have the DCCD center control, driver's control diff. So the torque split is always 50-50. It has a short track LSD in front and also a short track LSD at the back. So it's kind of very neutral, just steering it. And so, you know, for example, corners like this, first you steer in a little bit and you can kind of like control it on the throttle. Now with the suspension, we try to set it up a little bit more for a bit more forgiving with balance, but dialing out that little bit of understeer.
But actually right now it's set to almost the hardest setting. So this car is actually equipped with the Cusco Econ 2 adjustable dampening system.
Okay.
Electronically adjustable dampening system. So you can actually choose, you can dial in the exact stiffness of dampening that you want.
Oh, that's awesome.
So right now it's at almost the stiffest setting. I hadn't set it to the stiffest setting just because the stiffest setting isn't programmed, but you can set several different presets.
Right.
So that's what's really, really cool about this system. It allows you to choose comfort, you know, when you're with your girlfriend or your wife or your significant other, and when you want to hit the track or when you want to hit the toge, set it to the hardest setting, and maybe like somewhere in the middle for just day-to-day driving around town.
So right now you said it's right at the stiffest setting, but I'm feeling that the compliancy from the suspension, it's not jarring, it's not hard at all. It's still quite comfortable, that I'm feeling very much where all the four wheels are. Like turning the steering wheel, I can really feel that the tires are, you know, where they are, where they're pointed. This is something that was missing on the standard suspension. So the interior, the driving position of the steering wheel, and this is the same steering wheel from the Hawkeye GDB F and G. The same with the gear shift. All the position is exactly the same as the Impreza STI, but the interior dashboard is all the different design. It's designed later than the Impreza, so it's got better material over here, and he's replaced this with the SG5 center console, which has a better finish and more cup holders. Very, very useful. And the optional on-dashboard display. And this is a Autoto aftermarket, which has a connection to the iPhone via cable here. So usually the 2-DIN should be mounted here, but because of the optional on-dash on top, you actually have double 2-DINs, and it's got even more cup holders down here. So all right, so I can't have all three here, but there's additional cup holders also down here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, or one over here. The instrument cluster is green, just like the GDB A and B, rather than the Blob Eye onwards, which has the red. So it kind of maintains that classic Impreza kind of feel. Now the seats are the same material and design as the Blob Eye STI, also black, exactly the same. Same with the carpets. This is aftermarket though, but a nice addition. And we have Mr. STI Bear sitting here.
Hey guys, I'm Albo, and this is my Forester STI. I've had this car for about 3/4 of a year now, and in that time I have confirmed that this is probably the best Subaru that you can buy at this moment, even compared to the newer models. And let me tell you why. Prior to this, I owned a white GDB Bug-Eye WRX STI. It was a great car. It was really, really fast. It had the huge wing, it had the scoop, it had the face that only a mother could love, but I fell in love with it, and I thought it was a great looking car. And you know, growing up, I loved the World Rally Blue. I loved the rally heritage of the Subarus, and it was my car of choice in the original Gran Turismo. When I found out about the Forester STI, I thought, wow, it is basically everything I need in a car. It's extremely practical, it's fast, it's all-wheel drive. I can take it to the toge, I could take it to the track. I could pretty much do anything I wanted with the car, or so I thought. And in terms of driving dynamics, it's very easy to drive. It's a lot more easy to drive than the Bug-Eye, which, you know, you had to really push it near redline to get the most out of the power. You had to kind of wring the power out. But the power is on tap right from the lower end of the rev range because of the 2.5, which is a lot more torquey. In my opinion, this is the ultimate expression of the GDB generation of the Impreza chassis and the Forester chassis. It's just a great car, and I highly recommend it to anybody. I can't say enough good things about it. And I love it, and I hope you guys love it as much as I do. So guys, that was a quick review of the Subaru Forester STI version SG9. Hope you liked it. And so if you like to see deeper reviews of this video, let us know in the comments. And that's all from us. Until the next time, peace out.